So, welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast. It's so great to have you on. So, for those that don't know you, would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I am a professional Ironwoman and I just completed my 6th season. So I started when I was really young at 16 and have been doing that for my whole life so far pretty much. And outside of being an athlete, I am studying environmental science at Sydney Uni and also am very passionate about sustainability, in particular protecting our oceans. So I do a lot of stuff for Take 3 for the Sea, and I run a small sustainability program at my surf club, which is Newport Surf Club on the northern beaches of Sydney.
That's awesome. So, what made you, like you said, you've been doing Iron Woman stuff for quite a while. What made you fall in love with it and like sport and the water?
So with surf life saving and the sport of Ironwoman, most people start in it from being a nipper at a young age, and like they go through nippers, and if you like competing and are really into that stuff, then you continue it when you get above the age of 14, and then you can, like, if you keep on doing it from there, then you can make it like into the like open competition pretty much, and or do professional competition. So when I first started nippers when I was about 6, I hated it. My parents pulled me out, and then when I was 10, I think, a lot of my friends at school were doing it at a different surf club. So my parents thought it would be a good idea to put me and my sister back into it. So we joined Bronte Surf Club, which was just down the road from our school, and I absolutely loved it. Like, hanging out at the beach with all of my friends was so much fun. In particular, going out on the boards and just paddling in the waves and swimming in the waves, I fell in love. So that's kind of where I fell in love with doing activities in the ocean. And then we joined the training group that was part of Bronte Surf Club, and I instantly fell in love with being able to push my body and see like how hard I could go or how fast I could go. And since then, like, that was the particular moment when I was young when I fell in love with racing. But I was an absolutely shocking competitor when I was young. Like, I never got any good results in the junior carnivals. I didn't even make any like finals. Our biggest competition in nippers is state, and I did not make any state finals. But I loved competing and loved being in the ocean, so I stuck with it. And then a few years later, when I moved surf clubs to North Bondi to be like a youth, like train at a youth level, I guess, I got a lot better and improved dramatically. And that's how I managed to make the series at a young age and have been doing it ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's so important, like, especially I'm sure, like from my own background as swimming, like we do a lot of training. So it's so important that you love it and have that social aspect of it as well, because otherwise I just don't think you're ever going to perform at your best.
Yeah, I totally agree, particularly with our sport. So for people who don't know, it can be a bit confusing sometimes. So when I say I'm an Iron Woman, a lot of people think I do triathlon, but doing surf Iron Woman is a bit different. So we do 3 disciplines in the ocean, which is swimming, board paddling, and ski paddling, which is like kayaking. And then we run in between those legs as well. So we have to train for 4 disciplines, and we do like 15-minute races, as such, of like a combination of board paddling and running. So we train for 4 disciplines throughout the week. So we train 2 to 3 times a day, every day of the week. So we can train up to like 16 sessions a week, which is crazy to try and balance that and our other lives as well.
Yeah, it that sounds really hectic. I
Yeah.
thought my like 8 to 10 sessions a week was a lot plus comps, but you definitely take the cake on
Yeah.
that one.
So going back to what you said, we, like, pretty much all the athletes that do this sport love it. Like, it's really hard to do it if you don't love it.
Yeah, there's no way you could turn up that much if you didn't enjoy it.
No,
It just wouldn't happen.
no.
Um, so I have seen that you've done the 52K World Paddleboarding Championships in Hawaii. What was that like, and what kind of training do you have to do, like physically and mentally, to do a race like that?
Yeah. So the race you're talking about is the Molokai to Oahu World Paddleboard Championships. And I do that in the off season of Ironwoman racing. So our Ironwoman competition runs from around October to April. So it's about to finish for me now. And then in the off season, I generally do that race because I am a good board paddler, and the Molokai to Oahu race is like the most prestigious board race you can do. And it's awesome because it's in Hawaii and it's an ultra endurance race. So people who want a challenge always generally go to that one. I've done that 3 times now. I couldn't do it last year because of COVID, and I doubt I'll be able to do it this year, but I still have done it 3 times. I did my first one when I was 18, I think. And doing a race like that has been like the greatest experience of my life. Not like, one, because I got to push my mind and body to new limits, but 2, because when you do a race, the race in Hawaii is such a cultural and spiritual experience because the race like connects a lot to how people used to paddle between islands, like back in the day. I mean, back in the day, like as like a cultural thing and stuff. So it's like a very spiritual and emotional race, but also extremely challenging. And yeah, it's definitely one of the toughest races I've ever done.
Yeah, I can imagine. I honestly can't even imagine doing a 52-kilometer paddleboard. Like that's honestly insane.
Yeah. So to give some more context, on a paddleboard, it generally takes between 5 to 6 hours to paddle between the 2 islands. So the 52 kilometers is between the islands of Molokai to Oahu, and it goes through the Kaiwi Channel, which is also called the Channel of Bones because it can get really rough and treacherous in there. So there's waves, there's rips, there's currents, and the water's like 700 meters deep. So it's a crazy environment. And to answer your question of how do you physically and mentally prepare for that. So it's changed a lot over the years because I've learned so much after doing the race a couple of times. So the first year that I did it, I did a lot of just like grinding training. Like I was just paddling, trying to clock up as many hours as I could of just paddling so that I knew I would be able to make the distance. And the scariest thing about doing it for the first time is that you are genuinely not sure if you're going to be able to finish the race because it's such a long way.
Yeah.
And not knowing what the conditions are going to be like is scary also, because if the conditions are good, it can make the race go a lot faster. And if they're bad, you could be out there for hours more. And the first year that I did it, my best friend, Harriet Brown, decided to do it too. And we're both very good board paddlers. So we were going to like go head to head together in this race that neither of us had done before. And we both obviously wanted to beat each other. And I do believe that I was physically prepared for the race, but I was absolutely not mentally prepared for the race. And when I started, I went out really hard and I was in front of Harriet and I was so stoked. I was like, oh yes, this is good. Like I'm exactly where I envisioned myself to be. And then as any race does, it got really, really hard. And it was so hot, and like because I'd gone too hard too early, I was fading quickly. I don't think I did my nutrition right. So then I just completely lost it. And I actually ended up crying for like 4 out of the 6 hours that I was out there. It was such a tough battle. And I couldn't grapple with the fact that Harriet she had passed me and had gotten really far in front of me. And I was so upset about not being able to beat her that I was really struggling to enjoy the moment of the race. And that was a big learning experience for me. But and like at the end of the day, I still really loved the race. It was an incredible experience. But it was a big mental awakening doing a race like that.
Yeah, for sure. So you said like that, you were quite upset and quite emotional throughout that race and don't think you were mentally prepared. How did you go in the following year? Like what did you change and how do you think, reflecting on that, was it better, worse? Could you improve again?
Yeah. So the second year I knew what I was in, knew it would be really hard, and I had changed my training and nutrition a bit going into that year. So I felt like more prepared. And again, I went in wanting and thinking I could beat Harriet because I'm never going to go into a race thinking that I can't win it because that's just in my nature. And this race, I was definitely a lot more like had a lot more mental clarity, and I told my support boat like things that I wanted them to say during the race to keep me uplifted and all of those things. And I was, in general, like I was a lot mentally better that race. Like I didn't get as emotional, and I wasn't as like caught up on the fact that it was like be all or end all if Harriet passed me. And she did end up beating me again that year, but this year was different because the conditions were horrific, and it actually ended up taking us a really long time to finish. So it was like the
Yep.
longest race by a mile. And the hardest part about the race is that when you get close to the island at the end, it doesn't, like once you're 10 Ks away, it doesn't get any closer for a really long time. Like you can be paddling and paddling and paddling, but the island is not getting any closer. So I guess like the toughest mental part of that is just trying to like not give up when it looks like nothing is moving or you're not moving. And I think I did that. Like it's funny because when you do races like that, you can't actually remember much from the race. Like I'm sure you can relate in like a swimming race. Like you kind of do it and finish it, and you're like, oh wow, like I like
Yeah.
how did I do that? And by the time I got to the really pointy end of that race, I knew Harriet had beaten me anyway. So I was just kind of paddling to finish. But that was a great race to finish because it was so hard. And that was the hardest conditions they've ever had. A lot of people who had done the race 1,000 times before had beaten me. But like now that I'm thinking about it, every race that I've done at Molokai has been a different mental experience. So the last one that I did, the most recent one, again, me and Harriet did it together again, and by this time we had a very like good rivalry established because she had won 2 races and I had come second twice, and I wanted to beat her again.
Yeah.
So the first year she beat me by 25 minutes, and the year that I just described she beat me by 10. So I was like, the gap's shortening, like I'll definitely be able to get her on this one. And the conditions are perfect for this race, so it was a really enjoyable race. Like there wasn't like you could get really good runners, and it was nowhere near as hard as the year before. And I was ahead of Harriet for the whole race until the last about 5 kilometers when I started to really struggle, and she was catching me really quickly. And then I kind of went into my shell and was like, oh my God, this is not happening. Like I've been leading this whole race for 4.5 hours, and now she's just starting to catch me now. And we actually, when you get to the last island, you like turn around a corner and then it's 2 kilometers upwind into a bay. And we turned at the island of Oahu, which is the end island, to go into that 2K upwind, and we were right next to each other. And after paddling for 4.5 hours in a race, and then it comes down to this final paddle upwind, like that never happens really in that race. Like it's so unlikely that you're both going to get there at the same time. And I just could not believe that we had turned the corner at the same time, and she ended up beating me in the upwind bit, and she only beat me by 45 seconds. So the
Oh,
gap
no.
slowly started to kind of turn. But yeah, that race was, I guess, the thing that I struggled with mentally in that one was just like dealing with the fact that I hadn't, like, you never win a race until it's over. So that was a good learning experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. So you kind of touched on there how you go into the race thinking that you're capable of winning, but then within the race, you have moments where you second guess yourself. Is that something that you struggle with ongoing, or do you think that was purely because of the sheer length of that race?
I think probably ongoing, because in the heat of a moment of a race, I guess I find it really hard to like keep calm sometimes. And that's definitely something that I have been working on, especially in Ironwoman racing. Yeah, I know that in my racing, the thing that is gonna give me the most improvements would be how I change my mental attitude during racing and going into racing as well.
Yeah. Do you have like tools and things, like what are the strategies that you use to help overcome that?
So for Molokai, when I would notice that I would get in my head and start thinking about where Harriet was, or like how hard the race is and stuff, I really tried to go back to being present in the moment. So just think about like the deep water beneath me, or like the feeling of the water on my hands, or the color of the water, and just enjoying the moment, because it's such a long race. You can kind of have time to zone out in those situations. But in a shorter Ironwoman race where things are chopping and changing, I again try and stay present, but it's a lot harder because there's so much more going on. Like you have to think about the 20 other athletes around you, and what cans you've got to go to, what way you should go out, like what wave you should get on the way in, like where your craft is and stuff. So learning how to be present in that situation is still something that I'm working on.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say would be one of your biggest challenges that you've had to face so far, or a biggest setback, like injury or the mental side of things or anything like that?
I was having a think about this question, and like physically 2 years ago I got glandular fever. So that was a big setback for me, because since I was 16, I had never like had a break from training. I love training, so I would just train all the time, and I would never give my body a big enough break, which is why I eventually did get glandular fever, because I had just pushed myself too far. And that was a challenge, because I was so used to training all the time. I didn't know how to not train. Like that was a big, like, I wasn't so emotional about the fact that I couldn't race, because I knew that eventually I would come back to racing, but it was more I wasn't used to doing nothing. Like that was a big change for me. But what I did to kind of cope with that is I took my recovery as training. So in my mind I said, all right, if you can't train, then you've just got to think of everything that you're doing to make yourself better as training. So do all those things perfectly. So like nap perfectly, eat perfectly, like watch TV perfectly. I tried to do all those things really well. And that ended up being a really great experience for me. I learned a lot about like health during that time, and my body during that time. But I haven't had many big mental setbacks like in general, and I've been very lucky, touch wood, to not have any major injuries or major setbacks like that. The only like setbacks that I have faced have been like if I didn't get a result that I wanted, and coping with that.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you said about glandular fever. You didn't know how to not train. I think a lot of people, including myself, sort of struggled with that during the lockdown, not being able to train. You kind of, I know for me personally, I had to learn who I was without swimming. I definitely associate my identity and who I am as being a swimmer. And so I had to learn and figure out who I am without it, and learn how to function without it. Like what am I interested in? What am I good at? Who am I as a person without swimming? Like what does that even look like?
I relate to that so much. So I have a sports psychologist, or like just a life coach who helps me with that stuff. And that's one of the major things over the past few years that I've realized is in times when I get stressed about, like, this is beyond just not being able to train when I had glandular fever, but just in general. I, when I get anxious or get stressed, it's generally because I'm struggling with my identity as an athlete. Because, as you said, I identify myself as an athlete. So when I get put in high pressure situations such as a competition, I can often um, like put too much pressure on it, because I'm worried people won't be able to like see my worth, because I value myself as an athlete, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I have realized over the years that I try and um, the times when I feel most loved is when I am like doing well in a competition, because in my mind, my identity is an athlete. So as long as I'm an athlete, I will be loved. But as you said, throughout like this past couple of years working with my sports, like I've started to unlock in my mind that people love me for much more than just being an athlete. Like they love me for who I am outside of that as well.
Yeah, it's so important. And I love that you said that you see a sports psych. What was it that made you start to see them? Was it like a tipping point for you?
Well, it's funny. So my sports psych is also my gym coach. So it's like a double. So it started, I was just seeing him for gym. He was my personal trainer, and he started doing I don't know the correct word for it, but he started doing heaps of courses and education in not specifically sports psychology, but it was like understanding the mind and why we like think certain things and why people have beliefs and things like that. And as I became like, as he found out more about me, as I trained with him, we became really good friends, and he started to notice all of this baggage that I was carrying on my shoulders as an athlete. And he slowly kind of started to, like, we would just talk about it in conversation. And then over the years, it just like became deeper and deeper. And as he started to discover more things, like we were able to unpack more stuff, and like it just kind of evolved organically. And I can't really remember the tipping point where we started actually talking about like my mentality in racing, but it's just kind of grown a lot to the point now that I'll go and see him for gym sessions, but often we'll just end up talking, like
Yeah.
depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's so good that you just judge it on how you're going. I think that's so important. So because you see him and able to talk to him about those sort of things, do you think that, I mean, obviously lockdown was hard for everyone, but do you think having the strategies that you did and what you learned through not training when you had glandular fever, do you think that helped you get through lockdown?
Yeah, so lockdown for me was kind of actually a tipping point. So I was I was lucky that my parents have a house up the coast, and when lockdown hit in New South Wales, we went up there. We were able to go up there because it was like a residency. So we were able to get away from the stress of Sydney and go up the coast and be there, which was extremely lucky because it was very close to the beach and the beaches didn't get locked down up there. So I kind of went on like a 2-month holiday, as like not holiday, but like escape from
Yeah.
Sydney. And at the time, that was exactly what I needed, because we had just come out of like um the middle of the season, and me and my boyfriend had just started, like, he actually started learning about all of this stuff, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, but he discovered the Resilience Project during that
Yeah.
time. And we fell in love with it instantly. So he started to do a lot of research on mindfulness and um, the Resilience Project and Hugh and all these things. And we really got to unpack that and discover that while we were in lockdown. And that was just, it was really refreshing because we were able to see like all of these things outside of our athletic lens, if that makes sense. And then so
Yeah, it
I kind of
does.
was able to apply all this stuff to who I was outside of an athlete. And then when lockdown ended and I came back to training and stuff, I was almost like I wasn't as stressed out about my identity as an athlete because I had been able to find all these things I was grateful for outside of being an athlete.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I know, I mean, being in Melbourne, we've had two very long lockdowns. And it's super hard to try and find, it's like, okay, and particularly in Melbourne where you couldn't go further than 5Ks from your home, it really restricted you as to what you can do, and only outside for an hour. It was very restrictive in terms of, especially for athletes. I think, I mean, it's hard for everyone, but I think athletes in particular who really identify and feel like their whole identity evolves around their sport, to try and find something outside of that, because when you're in full training season, there is not a lot of time to do other things. Like, you don't really have, like, you have a social life, but it's limited, or having another hobby, it doesn't really exist when you're in the peak season. So I think finding that is so important, and the Resilience Project is amazing. I've listened to Hugh's book through Audible and listened to his podcast. Like, I love it. It's so good what he does.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think what you're saying is so right. And that, like, I don't know how you guys did like the full on lockdown like they did in Melbourne. Like, we've had a few lockdowns here in New South Wales, but they were nowhere near as bad as what you guys had to do. Like, we were still able to go outside and train and exercise in small groups and stuff. So I'm near as bad. And so I totally understand about what you're saying, how those situations and you're in the full lockdown is really beneficial to find who you are outside of being an athlete. But what was cool about our lockdown and our sport, so we do all of our training out on the ocean pretty much. So what we did when lockdown hit is our training group would kind of meet up in little groups out in the ocean, and we would all go do a session, just so like the coaches kind of did that, so that a lot of people in our squad are young, so they wanted to take care of the mental health of our young athletes and wanted them to get outside while we were in lockdown. So they kind of did it just for that. So we were training for fun, for no purpose whatsoever. And it was amazing because everyone really enjoyed it. And I think it was a really great time for our squad to realize that we are doing all this training mostly because we love it. Like, we do it because we love racing as well, but we also do it because it's a great way for us to clear our minds and get outside of like social media and all the stress of school life and all of those things. Like, being out in the ocean and training is the best way to just like relax and come back to who you are. So it was really cool how many people actually wanted to do those little sessions while we were in lockdown, even though there was no competition. And I think it made us a lot closer as a team as well. So we all discovered that we're doing it because we love it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I know we definitely resorted to Zoom and trying to, I mean, being a aquatic athlete yourself, I guess, they're definitely limited, especially for myself being in a pool, not having access. So trying to train over Zoom is pretty hard, but obviously there are some dry land exercises that you can do that's still beneficial. But yeah, we stuck to Zoom, and it was definitely a mental side of things too. Like, it was just, what did you get up to today? Have you got a Netflix recommendation that you can start watching, or we'll do something together? Have you, done a home cooked meal, or did you try out a new local cafe? It was definitely just keeping that social network mentally, just to keep you going.
Yeah, I agree.
So to switch gears a little bit, I know I watched your live video on Instagram with Joel, and you spoke about body image. I'd love your thoughts on the relationship, like if you think there is one between body image and eating disorders and sport, and like, what are your thoughts on it?
So in our sport, like we, similar to swimming, well, the exact same as swimming, we're in swimmers all the time. And I feel like that is an extremely hard sport for female athletes to be involved in, because your body has to be on show all the time. Like, there's no way to cover it if you have any insecurities. And in a sport that's dominated by swimwear, like, it's so easy for girls to, like, I would say body stigma has a negative impact on our sport, because everyone thinks it, well, not like, people think they're meant to look a certain way, even though no one really thinks that. If you kind of, if that makes if that makes sense. Like, people, like, I'm going to speak on behalf of myself because I don't want to speak on behalf of other people, but you'll like, if you see an ad for someone in a bikini, like, and then you're doing a sport where you're in a bikini, it's easy to think that that's what you're meant to look like. And is it all right if you ask that question again? Because I'm going to start it differently. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. So I'll do the whole question. So I saw your live video with Joel on body image and sport. I would love to know your thoughts on the relationship between sport and body image and eating and all of that.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a massive correlation between body image, eating disorders, and sport that are both negative and positive. So to start off with, like, the positive, being an athlete has made me like really aware of what I'm eating in a good way. So I try really hard to have a really healthy diet and make sure that I'm feeding my body the best possible things I can to ensure that I can race the best I can. And I think sport is a really great way to like get people eating healthy, because generally, like, a lot of people think athletes are allowed to eat badly because we're doing a lot of exercise, but I feel like generally athletes want to eat, make body can reach like the full potential that they can. But then also anything to do with eating and having a body on show, like in a sport like ours where you have to be in a swimsuit, it can lead to eating disorders. And I know our sport is particularly hard because we have to be, when female athletes go down to the beach to compete, they've got their body on show the whole time. Like we're in swimmers all day and we're racing out in the surf in our bikinis or swimmers. So you have, it's a pretty brave thing for us female athletes to put ourselves on the line like that, when society judges women's bodies a lot in this day and age. And I've been lucky to I haven't not ever had an eating disorder, but I can definitely say that doing this sport has made me very aware of my body and very conscious. Like I do often struggle with feeling uncomfortable with my body and not wanting it to be on show. Yeah, and there's so much I can say on this. So like if you want to ask me a more specific question to help guide the conversation, I think that would be.
I know, I feel like it's such a big topic and you could talk about it. So hard because, as you said, like being in bathers all of the time, you're so exposed. Like there is no way to cover up. If you are insecure about something, or everyone has good days and everyone has bad days. If you are having a bad day, there is no way to get around that. And I definitely think I agree with you in the sense that being an athlete, you were definitely more conscious of what you're eating, and not necessarily in a bad way. It can go in a bad way, but I think generally speaking, it's pretty good. And I think, and it's hard too, because I think as well that if you weren't an athlete and people saw you being that conscious of what you're putting in your body or looking a certain way, the average person, I think people would question like, why are you being so strict? Like, why are you doing it? But because you're an athlete, it's deemed as okay. Like where I think it can be hard to find like where is that line of where it's healthy and where it's not. And it can go so many different ways.
Yeah, that's so true. And to start like going to what you said about good days and bad days, in a sport like ours, like it's so hard to train well when you're having a bad day and you're feeling really insecure about your body. And even though I haven't had an eating disorder, like coping with body image has been something that I've slowly had to work on. I've often felt in my mind that I have had to like, I've had a pressure to always have a fantastic body because I was really lucky growing up. Like I was just naturally really slim, so like I never had to worry about what I ate or like what I did. I just always like was skinny, which is like everyone can think like, oh, that's like awesome, how could you ever complain about that? But later in life it has caused me like stress because I worry that I might lose that, and then if I lose that I'll lose my identity, kind of like what we were talking about before. So working through that has been really influential. And the funny thing is that when we did the Jolan live, we had a lot of people message us, because me and my friend Harriet did it, who was also very lean and fit looking, messaged us saying it was wrong for us to do this talk because we were good looking and we had good bodies. How could we possibly have body issues that we could share with these young girls? Like, this is a terrible message to spread, and all these negative things. And I was so angry when we got those messages, because even though I do have a good body by definition, that doesn't mean that I'm happy with it, or it doesn't mean that I can't be insecure about it. And to say that I'm like, I luckily don't have like massive insecurities, but I am insecure about particular parts of my bodies. But because my body's good, does that mean I'm not allowed to talk about that, or to worry about that, or seek help about that? And I think that was a really important issue that we found by doing the Jolan Live, is that like everyone struggles with their bodies, and that's got to be the thing that's accepted. It can't just be for people who are unhappy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's so important that you say that. And I definitely fall into the trap, and I think social media definitely plays a big part in that. As you see people online and think, oh, they have a perfect body, they'd be so happy. But that's not necessarily the case. I think everyone has some sort of insecurity or something that they're not 100% happy with. Like, it doesn't matter what you look like, there's always going to be something that you don't like, or you say, oh, you know, I wish I had that girl's hair, I wish I had that girl's abs, or, you know, that girl has amazing legs. There's always something, like the grass always seems greener elsewhere.
Yeah. And of course we're going to think like that. And it's so okay to think like that. I used to feel really guilty whenever I started to feel like I was judging my body, like, because I would think, oh, everyone always tells me I have a good body, so I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not allowed to feel insecure, but everyone's allowed to feel insecure, and that's okay. I think the hardest thing is that a lot of girls are trying to strive to reach to a point where they're completely happy with every single part of their body, but we're never going to reach that point. So just like try and be at peace with what makes you uncomfortable. Like, yes, your body looks like that, but even though that makes you upset, that's not why people, like, that's because I feel like a lot of it comes back to feeling loved. Like, people aren't going to love you any differently because you're insecure about your calves or your legs. Like, it's just your opinion on yourself. It's got nothing to do with anyone else.
Yeah, and we're always our own worst critic as well. Like, we're definitely, well, I know I am personally really good at picking and bullying on myself, like, oh, this doesn't look like this person, or, you know, this person's faster than me and they look like this, maybe I should look like that so I can be more like them. And it's just not the case. Like, every single person's body is different, and sometimes it helps to remind myself, like, look what my body can actually do. Like, I can swim, I can walk, I can run, I can do so many things with my body the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's got to be celebrated more, particularly in a sport of ours where our bodies are on show. Like, it's really hard to get caught up in the thought, as you said, that you can't be a good enough athlete because your body looks a certain way. But we just have to focus on what we can do and celebrate the fact that we all have things that we're insecure about, but we also all have things that we like about ourselves. So I think we have to celebrate those things. And one of the points that me and Harriet said, which I really liked in our chat, is that when you find yourself thinking negatively about yourself because you're comparing yourself to someone else, instead of dragging them down because they have something that you don't want, be happy for them. Like, that if you're jealous of that girl's hair, don't, like, it's really easy to feel sorry for yourself because you don't have her hair, but the nice way and the more grateful way to be about it is like, wow, that girl has fantastic hair, like that's amazing for her. I might compliment her on her hair because she's got such nice hair. Like, turn it into an act of kindness rather than an act of envy.
Yeah, that's so good that you say that. And I think sometimes, like that, like, you know, if we do create this person that has amazing hair, she may be really insecure about her hair. She may think that it's horrible and she wants someone else's. And I think too, like, doing that act of kindness, saying, I really love your hair, that could make her day and make her feel less insecure about that part of her body.
Absolutely. And I think in general, comparing ourselves to others and thinking negatively just creates a negative energy. And if we were, as a society, able to change that, I think everyone would be better off. Like, if we could just flip that negative energy to positive energy, like, it would make such a difference.
Absolutely. What kind of impact do you think sport has had on your life, and has it changed?
Sport has had the biggest impact on my life, more than anything else, because sport has pretty much been the only thing that I've done in my whole life. But sport has given me, like, I can't even describe on my hands what it's given me. Like, it's given me so many opportunities to make new friends, to travel the world, to find other passions such as my environmental passions. Like, that started in sport. To discover more about myself and how my mind works and what my values are and like what I really want in life. And I can't, like, stress enough how important it is for any young people listening to this to find a sport that you love, because it can just really open up so many doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's been a bit of a challenge to organize the time to catch up, because you've been so busy competing. How has that been going?
Competing has been good. So for the past 3 weeks, I've been away up north competing in this year's Nutrigrain Ironwoman series, which is our professional competition. And we competed 6 rounds, all condensed into the month of February because of COVID. It was meant to be spread out throughout the whole summer, but the Northern Beaches lockdown changed that. So we just had it over 2 weeks, and I ended up getting 3rd overall, which I was really happy with. It came down, me and my friend Georgia Miller tied on 2nd place, but she ended up beating me in a count back because she had more wins. So I was a bit devastated about that because I wanted to get better than 3rd because I got 3rd the season before. But at the end of the day, I was really happy with the series because it was the best I had ever raced. And going back to that really helped. I became really grateful for just racing, and I was really happy with how I went. And we also just had our New South Wales state titles, and I got to do that with my Newport teammates, and that was so much fun. And our team ended up winning the overall point score, so that was really exciting.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's so good.
Thank you.
What are your upcoming goals for the next season and even, in the next few years? What's the ultimate goal?
Well, the ultimate goal is definitely to win the Nutrigrain Ironwoman series. So that was my goal going into the series this year, and it has been my goal for pretty much every series I've gone into. I think it would be really strange for an athlete to go into a professional series and not have the goal deep down of wanting to win it. But I really, really do want to try and win it. And I think I will one day get to the point that I can, but it's more like discovering each season. I discover a little bit more that I need to change to be able to get there. But our season isn't fully over yet. We still have our Australian titles in April, which is the last event of our season. It's the big hurrah. And I would love to win the Ironwoman title there as well. So that's what I'll be striving towards for the next 5 weeks.
That's awesome. So I got a few questions to finish up with. What is something that you're most proud of about yourself?
I am really proud of my ability to think deeply about things. So I have often been called a stressor or a warrior because I think deeply about a lot of things, and probably too much sometimes, which is why I've called a stressor or a warrior. But I also think it allows me to really see things in a different way, and particularly when that comes to my dedication to sport or my passion to want to help reduce plastic in the ocean. I think it gives me a different vision kind of in those situations, and I can see things that other people might not be able to see. And because I think deeply about things, I'm proud of my ability to always think about others and make sure that they're okay as well.
I love that you spoke about the mental side of things, and that it's about your mind, not necessarily anything else. And I know personally, having anxiety, people always, it's kind of seen as a negative sometimes, but someone once said to me, it's because you care, and caring's a good thing. It just means that you really care about how you perform, or you worry because you care about other people. So it's not a bad thing. Obviously sometimes it can get you a bit worked up, but it's a good thing that you care.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
What is your favorite quote or the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
So there's been a lot of great advice that I've been given in my life, and I would love to be able to say everything that I have learned, except of recently the best quote that I've kind of heard came from this YouTube video of a cyclist that I watched, and he was talking about when you get to a really tough point in training, and you often it's common for people to get to a really hard point in a set, or in anything in life, get to a really hard point in your study or something and start to think this isn't how it should be, doing this should be easy and all this stuff. And he kind of goes why should it be easy? It was never meant to be easy. Show me who said it was meant to be easy. And that really, the way that he said it was really mind changing for me, because I often, when I get to if I get to a hard point in the set and I'm struggling and I feel like I'm not doing it to the best of my ability, I start to freak out because I'm upset that I'm not performing. But it shouldn't be any other way. If I'm giving it my best in that situation, then I can still finish the set. It's just not going to be perfect, but I'm still there and I can still try. So recent.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last but not least, any tips for those listening or anything else that you want to share with everybody?
Definitely, like the things that you're doing, Renee, are awesome, and I think more people need to be like talking about and doing stuff about mental health. So I think the most important thing that we can do as a society is just talk about what's on our minds and be more vulnerable and open to how that we're feeling, because everyone is at the end of the day feeling the same way and you're not alone. So talk to people, say how you're feeling, and I think the world would be a better place because of that.
Oh, thank you. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and share everything that you have. It's been so good having you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk.